When the Epstein Island story came out, what struck me most was not the crime itself, but how shocked the people are. I saw disbelief everywhere, as if humanity had crossed some invisible moral line for the first time in history. People spoke as though this was proof that the world had suddenly gone insane, that civilization had failed overnight. But as someone who learned history and get depression from learning history, Island felt similar. Not acceptable, not normal, not something to excuse, of course, but it's just familiar. Because once you truly study history, not in the clean version taught in schools, but in the raw version written in blood, bones, and wars, you realize that human beings have always been capable of horrifying things. The only thing that changes is in the setting and in the technology. We move from caves to palaces, from arenas to private islands, from swords to contracts. But the desire to dominate, consume, and exploit does not disappear. It adapts and evolves. That's why Epstein Island does not feel like a shocking break from human nature. It feels like a continuation of it. If you look honestly at history, you begin to understand that what we call civilization has always existed side by side with brutality. Homo sapiens killed Neanderthal to survive. Humans have eaten their own children during sieges and famines. Not because they were monsters, but because desperation strips away moral boundaries. Entire cultures practiced human sacrifice and believed it was sacred. Cannibalism was ritualized. Slavery was legal, defended, and even blessed by religions. In many cultures, it was normal to marry 6 to 9-year-old girls. Crucifixion was not only a punishment, but a public spectacle designed to humiliate and terrify. In ancient Rome, families gathered to watch people be ripped apart by animals, and no one called it evil back in the days. They called it entertainment. These acts were not hidden in the shadows. They were part of humans' life. So when people today act shocked that wealthy, powerful individual could exploit others for pleasure, it feels like they have historical amnesia. Humanity has done worse, openly, proudly, and repeatedly. But that does not mean I justify that. Power plays a crucial role in this pattern. We often say that power corrupts, but that idea is too comfortable. It suggests that people become evil only after they gain power. But history shows something darker. Power removes fear. It removes limits. It removes consequences. When most people behave morally, it's not because they are saints, but because they are restrained by laws, social pressure, and the risk of punishment. Take those restraints away, and a disturbing number of people begin to test how far they can go. Wars prove this. Prisons prove this. Psychological experiments prove this. Epstein Island was not built by demons, it was built by people who believed they are untouchable. And for a long time, they were right. That is what makes it terrifying. Not how evil they were, but how protected they are. Wealth makes this even worse. Extreme wealth does not simply give you comfort. It slowly erases ordinary human satisfaction and desire. When everything is available, nothing feels meaningful. Pleasure becomes dull, and boredom sets in. The human mind, when combined with power and boredom, starts searching for stronger stimulation. This is why the elites throughout history have always drifted toward excess and perversion. Kings surrounded themselves with slaves and concubines. Take a look at Game of Thrones series. Aristocrats treated humans as objects. Take a look at Alexander the Great history. Colonial rules abused entire population. It's not because that the elite is a different species. It's because unlimited access breaks the sense of reality. The thrill stops coming from pleasure and starts coming from control, from breaking rules, from doing what others cannot. Epstein Island was not about desire. It was about domination disguised as indulgence. And one of the most uncomfortable truths is that evil does not disappear as societies advance. It simply evolves. We like to believe we are more moral than the past, but that belief survives only because modern evil is cleaner, quieter, and better organized. But evil did not disappear. It never will. It just learned how to dress well. They do not crucify people in public anymore, but they bomb them from far away, or they create biological weapons. They do not own slaves legally, but they exploit cheap labor quietly. They do not sacrifice children to gods, but they sacrifice children to systems, money. Evil thrives not because people are blind, but because they do not want to look too closely at those they admire. Psychologically, evil often wins because it's efficient. Caring slows you down. Empathy complicates decisions. But a system built on competition and power often reward those who feel less guilt. This is why history is filled with ruthless leaders rather than compassionate ones. It's not that kind of people do not exist. It's that cruelty scales better in certain systems. Epstein did not succeed because the world failed. He succeeded because the world rewarded influence and money. Evil does not always need violence. Sometimes it only needs cooperation and indifference. Nietzsche understood something important when we spoke about going beyond good and evil. But the idea becomes dangerous in the wrong hands. When moral absolutes collapse, people are forced to create their own values. For some, this leads to responsibility and self-discipline. But for others, especially those with power, it becomes an excuse. If morality is just a human invention, then breaking it feels less like a sin and more like a privilege. This way of thinking is deeply attractive to the elites. It allows them to believe they are above rules meant for ordinary people. Epstein did not need religion or ideology. He needed money, protection, and the belief that moral boundaries were optional. This is exactly why I need the idea of God, not because I think humans are good, but because I know they are not. I know I am not. I understand that within every human, there is the capacity for cruelty, selfishness, and rationalization. Evolution did not shape us to be moral. It shaped us to survive. Aggression, desire, dominance, these are not accidents. They are part of our biology and DNA, inherited by our ancestors. God, for me, is not about claiming purity or moral superiority. God is a limit, a reminder that desire does not define truth. And just because something is possible does not mean it's acceptable. Without something higher than ourselves, morality becomes flexible, and flexible morality always bends toward power. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is, I would never do that. But history shows us that the worst atrocities were committed by people who believed they were justified, normal, even righteous. Evil rarely announces itself as evil. It wears logic. It wears entitlement. It wears boredom. And when you have boredom and money, it can be really dangerous for you. Trust me. Epstein Island did not expose monsters from another world. It exposed humans who were given everything and restrained by nothing. That realization is far more disturbing than any conspiracy theory or scandals. So no, I was not surprised. I have seen this story too many times. They were written in empires, ruins, and mass graves. Different centuries, different names, different setting, but same pattern. Epstein Island is not proof that the world is getting worse. It's proof that human nature has remained painfully consistent. And yeah, his story took away my innocence. But faith is what keeps me from becoming numb, or worse, becoming like the people I criticize. Those people are fighting their own demons, but defeated and sadly becoming one. Those people forget that they are created in the image of God. Image here is not just physical, but also spiritual.